Hey guys, welcome back to this series. This is episode 12. Today we're going to be handling the My registration page. So far we have a few components. So in the dashboard, as you guys know, we have this part where handles all the notifications. But like I said, normally when we have the notifications, my idea wasn't to store this in the database because of course, when you register for an event, you create a new event registration. If we go back a little bit to the backend, just so that you can follow my thoughts, you're gonna notice in models we have a registration event, right? And here's where we register a few things. We're gonna change this a little bit, but basically we're gonna create a page so that we can query this information and we can display that in the front end. So first thing first, let's create a new page. So here we're going to create a new folder that's going to be my registrations. Yeah. So we're gonna create this folder, and then inside we're gonna have an index.js, and you can also create a style.css. Okay, or you can call my registration or registration CSS, that's fine. Inside here, what first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to import React from React, and I will be, sorry guys, in index.js, and with that I'll be creating a first of everything. I'm going to create a component so that we can use in the router and make that showing up, right? So that will be the first goal that we have for today. You're going to export default. You could create a function, my registrations. This will be a function. This is basically a React component, and for now we can do a return and return a div that will say my registration component. Okay, so this component, the first thing that we want to do now, registrations, yeah, that sounds okay. Oh, my registrations, no, it's fine. So this first component, what we want to do is go to our routes and make sure that we can create here another route. This route will take a path. This path will be my registrations, and this needs to be exact, and the components that we're going to pass will be basically the new component that we just created. Okay, so now I need to import the component, my new page, that will be from page my registrations, right? So I'm just gonna pop this top because like this is a component, right? And I don't want to I want to split them by components and by pages. They're all React stuff, but like so that you can keep track a little bit more organized. So now we can go and test in the front end, and the best way that we can test is basically coming by to the URL. If you do here and say my registrations, you have a new component. So now we know that works. The first thing I want to do, I want to come here and add my registration to those links. So for doing that, what we need to do basically is to go back to our components folder, go to the top navigation. Here we're going to create a new link, right? So this link is going to be to my registrations. That's the path, and then you can say my registration, like so. So now if you go to the front end, we should have a link. If you click in the link, Yeah, it seems to be working fine. Cool. So now guys, the first thing that I want to do, I want to change the model in a way that we can use that a little bit easier to query. Okay, so I'm going to explain a little bit why we're doing that, but I think if I show you, it will make much more sense. Okay, so every time that you're querying data in MongoDB, you have a few methods, right? And the method that we use, just so that you can compare, if you go to the event, you can see how the structure of the events is. And then inside the backend, just to show you a little bit quicker, but to show you how does that work, we have this query here that basically looks for a sport, and if you don't have any sport, it returns an empty bracket. That means in the MongoDB brings me all the things that you have, that these events. So that's how we get all the events. But when you get all the events are an array with a lot of objects inside, right? Like so. And because they are objects, it makes much more harder for you to iterate in every single object, like make a for each or for loop, and request to the database because if you look here in the registrations in the model again, okay, so for every single event that you have, you would need to iterate by the events and get the user and events for every single event. So just this query will make you to do a lot of extra calls, and that would like make your backend very heavy and very delayed to return a response. So in order to achieve the same thing much easier, we're going to use, this is used in production a lot of places. We normally do that to increase the performance. So what we want to do, we want to add a few extra properties here. So that's going to be a owner. This is going to be a string. And we also want an event title. That's also string, because we want to know more about the events so that we can build our front end. We will need the event price. That's also a string, because we're formatting the values. So a user email, because we want to know which user basically made the request so that we can accept or deny. And we will need to know the event date. That's going to be also a string. Okay, so with that in mind, we need to change a little bit how our data or how our controller works. Okay, so if you go to the registration controller, you can see, if you go to the registration controller, you can see a little bit how we do that. So we verify if the user is logged in, then we grab the user ID from the secured part, and then we check for an event ID, right? And then basically for that specific event, this endpoint in this case, this is create. When we create, we populate the events and the user so that we can send the response to the front end with that information, right? But imagine that for every single registration, if you get all the registrations, you would need to populate every single one. So that's why we add in those properties. So basically what we want to do instead, we're going to create a new get registration like we have here. So we're going to create a new method inside of here that will be very similar to this get registration, but this one gets by ID. But we're going to create one that basically returns get my registrations. Okay, so we'll create a new method. This will be called get my registrations. This will get rec and res. like so, and basically I need a comma here so that we can export that. Remember that we're not using this endpoint, okay? But we're gonna use the new one that we created. So we'll copy these lines as we usually do, and we can start writing our new here, okay? So I'll need another bracket. I'll need to close that bracket here, and that should be all right. So let me see the brackets. If, else, yellow, blue. Oh, okay, we're missing one outside. All right, so now we can start doing what we need to do inside. This is going to be a little bit different, but will be very easy to build, okay? So in this case, what we want to do here will be to get inside the else, let's build a try and catch block. Here we want to create a const registration array, so that you understand this is going to return an array. Await registration dot find. So then inside the new event, okay, we're going to have a new property that is owner. Remember that we changed the model, so if you go and look to the model, now we have an owner inside, okay? So inside the owner, you want to use authData.user.id, okay? So we want to create an endpoint that will check all the owners. That means whoever owns the event, because like if you're subscribing, if you're registering for my event, I am the owner, so it's me that have the right to accept or reject your request, if that makes any sense. And then if registration exists, we want to return at this point res.json and the registration array, right? So the error here, for now, I will just console.log an error if we have any, so that we can test this. But of course, because we're creating a new data, we need to change how we create the data, because right now inside the create method, when we post, when you click in that button in the front end, let me show you in the front end so that you're in the same page. If you go to the dashboard, every time that you click in registration to make a request to register for this event, you're going to fire a post request for this method, and here we're gonna get the registration and create the event. We're gonna populate the event, and we're gonna send the event back. But there's a thing here that we're not doing that now. We're going to need to do. We need to get from, because when you do the populate, now we're going to have access to all the event and all the user data, okay? So we can do a test here. If you do a console.log and you do a registration, and we can go back to the front end and we can click here, we're gonna have a request. So now if you look here in the backend, so that you understand where I'm taking this data from. So registration is an object that has inside the ID, and then it populates the event. So that's the event, and populate the user. In this case, is the user that is subscribing to an event. So I'm using the test9, okay? So now that we know that we have this data here, what we can do is very simple, and that's why I love MongoDB. You can basically come here and you can append information there. You can say registration.owner. This is going to be equals to registration, that is this object here, dot event dot user, because we want to get the owner, and the owner is the user that created the event. So that's why. So if you look here, event, if you look a user, it has ID of the owner, in this case us. Okay, so we want to create this. We also want to get registration.event title. So the event title is going to be a registration.event.title, like so. We want to get the registration.event price. This will be registration.event.price, like so. Not event price, that will be price. And not event title, that will be title. This is my autocomplete. Okay. And then inside, we after the price we need a date as well. So registration.event date equals to registration.event.date. Yeah, this is event title, sport, price, user, thumbnail. Seems that we don't have the event date here. We need to double check that. Okay, date. This is maybe just an event that was an old one before we amend the model, and that could be possible. So now we can do a registration dot user email. If you ask myself, I'm taking all these properties from here. Okay, so you know where this is coming from. This will be a registration dot user, and if you look inside the user, we have an email there. Email. Okay, so now that we have all this data, that will be the owner, the event title, the event price, the event date, the user email. We need to do what? We need to save that information inside the module. So I'm going to do a registration.save. Okay, and that should be it. Okay, so now that we saved everything, bear in mind that we will need to console log the new event, and we would expect to have all these properties there. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the front end. I'm going to click in one of those newer events that we created, and I'll make this request successfully, so we can go back to the back end. And now what happens? We have ID, we have user, we have event like before, but now we have all of these things. And the difference that this is going to make is, if you get, just to show you what I mean, if you get a request through this endpoint, and if you pass the event ID here, sorry, this one, to the owner, so now we have this owner property that we're going to check against the user ID. So that means it's going to return from the database all the events registration that has the owner with my ID. So that means it's going to return just mine. However, remember that this is an array, right? So that's why we will use all these things, because then we don't need to do a for each to be able to populate the events and the user for every single of one. So I decided to have this approach because I think it's much cleaner, much easier, and it doesn't make more than one request to bring the data that we need. So now that we have a few datas here, I think we are ready to go to the front end and finally implement this get my registration. So if you go to the routes, now we want to go to the routes, we need to implement this new route. So then we have perhaps like this event here we're not using. We build that. I'm gonna leave that behind because we might, depending how many likes we're gonna have in those videos, we can implement new features in the future. We can implement new functionalities in the future. So I'm gonna leave that behind. But what we want to create here is a routes.get. This is going to be a registration, and will be just one registration. You could call registration user or do a different. I'll be very simplified here. So I'm gonna pass the middleware, and we're gonna use the registration controller, get my registration, like so. So now we have a new endpoint. We need to remember to add the slash, but also remember that now is just a get request to this registration, right? And pass the details from the user. Normally, like you guys know, I like to use Insomnia to test out the backend. However, because we have a ready front end, is going to be, I think, much easier for us and more visual for you guys that are following me up to see how we do in the front end. In this case, of course, we're gonna go to the front end. So now we can close the controller, we can close this, we can close the routes in the back end, the dashboard controller, and we can focus ourselves in the front end, that these components. Okay, so now the first thing that I want to do is get the event and console.log. That will be the first thing. Okay, so we're gonna do a const. I'll say my event and set my event. This is going to be a use state and will be an empty array. So because we're using a hook from React, we need to import that on top. So now we're gonna have a state. And another thing that we're going to need is a const user, like we do normally. Local, this is going to be a local storage dot get item user, like so. If you remember well, this is going to bring us basically the JWT token that we need to send in the request. Okay, so the first thing now that we can do is create a method and call this const get my event. Okay, this will be a function, very simple function, and here we're gonna use the our API. Okay, so we need to import our API back. So import API from, this is gonna be from the services API. Now inside the API, basically what we need to do is a try and a catch, like we normally do, and here we can say const response. This is gonna be response, you're gonna be await API.get. Now we need to pass the registration from the routes. So in that case was just a registration, so I'm just gonna copy the word registration. Okay, and then we need to pass here headers like we usually do, and this is an object with the user inside. Okay, so now that we have this, yeah, just formatted, we can console.log the response. And we need to remember every time that we use await, we need to have an async function. Okay, so now the get event, do you remember how we trigger that? Because we want to do that when the components re-render, right? So we're gonna need that another friend that we have called user effect. And with the user effect, basically what we can do, use the hooks that takes a anonymous function. Oh god, like so. And here basically we can get my events, like so. Now that we're calling this, we want to make sure that we go in the front end and see it did work. So it brought, okay, so here in the response we are interested in data. Okay, so now there you have it. There are 9 events, that is mine. Bear in mind that we changed the model just now, so of course I'm gonna have older events here that won't have the details that we want. But like this one is approved, is false. We have a few things here. Like this one, we have some information. There's a few ones with less properties, of course, like I was expecting. Okay, so now we have a good set of data to start building up our app, I would say. So now remember that what we want to do, apart from just console this out, for now I'll keep the console out there, but basically we want to set this response.data to my events. So now I can use that on my application, correct? So we can go back down here and we can start to build up our application from now on. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so let's start building this. Okay guys, so let's do that, right? The first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna delete all of this text. I will convert that to a UL so we can start to see what we build inside. I'm gonna add a class name here. We're gonna add some CSS. So that's gonna be event, so because every single one is one event, or it could be registrations. We'll follow with events. Then inside, what we want to check if we have my events. If we do have my events, basically what we need to do is a map, get the event from every single one, and then we can start building our components, right? So the first thing that we will have, of course, going to be an li, and in this li we need to remember to use keys. This is a React thing, and for the key we need to pass the event.id. Okay, and then inside the key now we can start to build the structure we need to use this component. So initially we need to add a few things here. I'm going to start adding a div, and this div is going to be basically to hold our title. Okay, so remember that we have a title now, so we can say event.title, event.event title. Remember that we use event title, yeah, and then we're going to create another div here, and this div basically will be a container, so I want to leave a class name behind as well. This one was going to be the event details, because we're going to have a lot of details inside, so like price, date, email, status, and so on. And then basically what we can do, we can create a span, and for I think we can basically create 4 spans. Okay, and then inside the spans, let's start adding the titles. Okay, so be event date, like when the event is happening. For the event date, it's important that we remember that we're using moment, so I'm gonna use a moment, and the moment will take the event date, right? And we're gonna do a dot format on that, and remember we can pass just an L, like we look in the docs that day. And for the below one, it's gonna be event price. So the event price, and then in my case I'm gonna add a pound. If you're using dollar, you can add your symbol. So this is a string, if you remember, so we need to parse that. So it's gonna do a parse to float, and that's gonna take the event price. Okay, so it'll be in a float format, and here we need to pass 2 fixed, and because we want just 2 digits after the 0. Okay, and for the next one, we'll create the user email, and these ones are the easiest. So you just need to render the event.user email like so, and the last one will be the status. Okay, and for the status, for now we can add event.approved is the name of the property. Okay, of course it's complaining against the moment, so we need to import moment from moment, and that's it. Now if you go back to your front end, my registration, we have 9 things, but I cannot see anything. Yeah, that makes sense because I'm not setting anything to there. So here, I think I did a Ctrl Z or something. I don't know what happens, but here, of course, I want to pass the event, the response dot data, and that should give us something. Yeah, so that's a good start. Now we have the 9 events that I own, just mine, because we create much more than that. If you note here, let me see why we are triggering so many. Oh, okay, it's because we didn't pass any. Now we won't do that. Yeah, so basically what happens, React, the use effect is what handles the side effects. Side effects is every time that you make a request and you change some things. What we changing? We change the my events, and with the my events, it's re-render the entire page because it's rendering here, and then when it renders again, it doesn't find this array here, and then it calls again, and then basically that trigger another update in my events that make this refresh again. That this is like an infinite loop, right? So that's why you need to show which dependencies you have here. In this case, because we don't want to re-render more than one time, we're passing an empty array. Okay, so I hope you understand that. So now let's give some love to this page. Okay, let's build up a little bit of styles so that we can start to visualize what we're doing. You can see that the status is being undefined for the most of them, and that's, of course, if you remember how the status works, the property approved is a property that doesn't have a default value. So when it's undefined, it will be empty. When it has a value, it's going to show the value. So we can handle that a little bit better. Let's have a look what we can do. Remember from the dashboard, I think from the dashboard we can copy the buttons that we used. Let me have a look here. Right, so we can kind of use that. So copy the button group. This is the accept and reject button because we're gonna have the same here. So we can come back, and then below this is spam. Basically, now below the div, we can add this button group. Because button group, if you don't know, is just another div. Of course, we need to import all these things. So I think it's much quicker just to come here. I will copy all of those and I will paste there and delete the grays ones. So in this case, I will delete all of that. Okay, so now we have a few things that's complaining about. Of course, we don't have these methods yet. So what we can do, we can return an empty function, and then we can do the styles and implement later the functions. Okay, so now we should have a button there. Yes, that's why if you noticed, we have the buttons below just because the way we built our front end, and that's a very good thing for the result I'm having in mind. So now inside the style, let's start adding few things there. First thing I want to do, I have the events, okay, and bear in mind this is a weird one because like we're not using Sass, so I cannot write like a super smart CSS. I'm gonna write like super basic stuff, okay. So this is gonna be a list of styles I want none because I don't want those balls. I want to display in flex, and I want the flex direction to be column, okay. And then the next thing that we want to add is the events li. We're gonna have the list below, and then we're gonna add padding that is the same padding from the page, is 30 pixels. This is coming from the container property that we have in the app.js. A margin to have some space between them. I want to use one rem. Rem is like a scalable property, so it will be responsive. Board radius, I want to add a fixed 4 pixels board radius. A background color for the LIs, I want to change a little bit different than the white transparent one. So I want the white smoke. You can use different colors, okay? Feel free to customize yours. I also want to add flex here, and the flex direction here will be a column. And I want to make the flex wrap so that they wrap when you shrink the page, so that it becomes responsive. So then if you remember, inside the event I have two divs, right? Let me show you the basically here. So if you have the events, and then inside the event I have 1, 2, 3 divs, because this is a div under the hood, if you don't know that. So basically we want to add a little bit of margin so that we can split them a little bit better. So you can say events div, I miss a dot here, dot events div, and this will be a margin top, so you have a space between one and another. This could be a half rem. The events details and a spam. Let me have a look here. This data, right? Okay, so we need to do the following here. No, that's okay. Let's go back here. This needs to be style. No, that's dashboard, sorry. So let's go back here. Let's import our CSS. Style CSS. Yeah, much better. So now we start to have a little bit of format I wanted. However, not happy with the title. Let's have a look here in the title again. I think besides the title, we could either do that in CSS, but I will just add a strong here, so we have a little bit better titles. Yeah, that's much better. Now there's a few things that we can do, okay? So inside the approved, we're going, let me see here if we have any status at all. No. So we are consoling out, so let's make sure we have approved there. Maybe I have a typo here. No. Oh, I see. It's because this is returns a boolean, right? So we need to handle that. In this case, we will need to create a few logic to handle that. Okay, so in this case, because events.approved returns a boolean and we don't render boolean, you have to do either to convert to a string, but then the default ones, the ones that's undefined, it fails. I see how we can do that. So there's a much better way for us to handle that. So let's create a helper function that will help us to solve that problem. Okay, so basically I'm going to say if that is different from undefined, and I will explain soon. I want to call isApproved helper. Is a function I'm going to create, and I want to pass the event dot approved. Okay, otherwise I'm going to say is pending, right? And isApproved is not a function that doesn't exist yet, so we can work in this function. This is basically will be const isApproved. This is will take approved because we're passing down there, and basically what we want to check here, if the value of approved equals to true, we want to return approved. Otherwise, we want to return rejected. So now we're going to have rejected, pending, approved, pending, reject, reject, reject. It is okay, but it doesn't look too good. Okay, so we can add a little bit more love here. So if we get this status and we split the status apart in another span, we could do status and then have another span here, and this span I'm gonna use a class name. Let me think about the class name. Let me paste this here. For the class name, we're basically going to have the same issue here. We can use that same code pretty much to return a class name that either will be approved. I see, yeah. So we can do that. We can use the same code again on the class name. Okay, so now we're going to have reject, pending, or approved. But if you check and inspect that, so if you click there, inspect the element, you're gonna find rejected. The next one will be, let's have a look. Let me go directly where I want to do. Let's see if this is pending. Yeah, it's working well. Let me see if I have an approved here. Approved. Yeah, approved. So now we can use that as a base for our CSS basically. So if you go back here, let's go for our CSS. So we can introduce few things here. Basically, you add a little bit of space between the spans. So that's for every single item, because I think they're too tied together. So you can add a margin here. Let's say this can be a 0.5 rem again. Yeah. Yeah, now they are splitted. And then because now we have approved, we have rejected is capital because we're using the same font with same function, and we're using pending. We can define different things. So here, guys, feel free to add the colors you want. I'm not investing time to find colors or anything, so I'm just gonna add green, red, maybe a blue one here. My idea since the beginning of this is not teach you CSS, is basically show you what React is capable of with very few lines of code. So you see how it becomes very easy to handle all the styling, all the colors, the things that we want to do. Another thing that I think we can do, by default, these buttons here, just to show you, they are buttons from that framework, but I know you can add specific a specific property if you want that to be disabled. So in my mind, we have three states. We have rejected and we have approved. But when it's pending, you want to accept or reject. In the other case, you don't want to click the buttons because they're already approved or rejected. And so that I think we could go back here. Let me think. Basically, we can use the same functionality again, similar one. So we can go to the button, okay, and say disabled. So you see this is a property. It takes a boolean value, so it means it's waiting for a true or a false. So we can use a disable. And for the button, we can say if the event dot approved equals to true or event dot approved equals to false, we can return true, otherwise false, right? So let's see if that works. Yeah, so you can see some buttons, they are now disabled. So we need to apply the same logic for also for the another button. And then now we have this effect. If it's approved or rejected already, we can see, and you have pendings, so you can click on these pendings. Basically, guys, I'll leave to you. I want you to drop some few comments. If you want to create, I would love to see your codes. If you want to create some filters where you can filter the ones that are rejected and approved and show just the pending ones. That will be a nice addition for this project. So make sure that you hit me on Instagram. Is at dev.genrowers. So make sure that you send me some pictures. I would love to see that on your project. I'll be very, very keen to see that. In my case, I'm not going to implement that functionality. I think that's very nice to have, but I won't do that now. So let's go back. So now what we're missing here is basically add the functionality here for these both functions, right? If you remember, if you go to dashboard, we are basically doing that there. My events handler, delete, registration, accept, and reject, right? So we basically can copy these both functions here. We can modify that a little bit and use the same code. And here goes another advice. For the means of this bootcamp, I'm not doing that, but I would suggest you to have just one function that does these things. You could pass a state either reject or approved, and you could have just one function, right? And another thing you could do basically is to export that function from another file so that you have just one function that you use for both components, okay? That's something that you can do. I'm gonna simplify, we'll keep the same code. So we can get this, we can take this out because we don't have this functionality in this page. And now, the set timeout as well, we can take everything out. And now basically we can add those functionalities to the buttons, okay? So we have accept event handler and reject. So on my accept, you want to call the accept event handler. This takes an event ID, so you want to call here an event.id, okay? And basically down here in the reject, you want to reject event handler event.id, okay? It feels all right. I know that there is something else that we need to do, but we can test here. Reject, what happened? So if you look here, network, we have the calls here, okay? So the call worked. What happened is we're not updating the page after we click. So, and that's very easy to handle. That's not the best way of handle, but we can basically call get my events again once we do that. So if you do here or you do here, you're gonna force the update, right? So let's try this out. If you click in reject or in accept this time, approve it. So there you have it, guys. I hope that you loved this tutorial. It was done with a lot of, I really enjoyed to do this for you. I'm very happy to be able to bring all this new knowledge. I hope that this knowledge from this tutorial helps you to maybe to get a better job, or maybe help you to find your first job, to work with Node.js, JavaScript. And this is going to be the end of this tutorial. I'm super happy so far that we got to this point. If you managed to get to this video and get this far, well done you. I really congratulate you to have done that so far. The difference between the people that manage to get success in life is the people that have discipline, and they work and they study and they keep pushing, and that's basically what you're doing if you got this far, right? So I'm really glad to have a lot of you. I have a bunch of new followers now. I'm super pumped. I'm gonna create a new series that basically is using the same backend, but it will be using React Native as a front end. So I'm not going to rebuild the backend. I'm just going to consume the backend on the React Native app. So if you would like to see that series, I'm going to release just when I got to 1,000 likes in the first video. So I'm hoping that you can spend 1 second, go for the video from the episode 0 and leave a like there. That helps a lot my channel to get more new views, and that will support the work I'm doing. So thanks guys very much. I hope that you guys enjoy this series. Please make sure that you drop a message to let me know if you enjoy, to send the pictures of the projects and the changes you did on your project to me on Instagram, and make sure that you follow me back. Thank you guys, have a lovely day, and see you guys in the next series.